Peninsula, and I am going to start the recording. So welcome, Mary Lou.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And thanks to those of you who are joining me today for a visit to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It is a cold day around here, and I would tell you that if we were in the Yucatan, it would not be cold. So we have sun around here, but I'm going to show you some even better stuff. And I'm some of you got a taste of the Mexican mariachi music that I had planned to introduce with this. So we'll give it a little bit more and then we'll move right along. And this always happens. There we go. Okay, so that's some tinny mariachi music for you to get you in the spirit. The Yucatan Peninsula is a great destination in the winter for people from the Chicago area. As you can see, it's immediately due south of Chicago, 3 hours and 40 minutes, and you get off the plane and it's heaven. The temperature is marvelous and no time change, so you don't even have to worry about any sort of jet lag. So we landed, this is to give you an overview of Mexico. The area that we're going to be visiting today is right over here. We landed at Cancun, and this is the part of the Yucatan Peninsula. As you can see, this Yucatan Peninsula encompasses Belize and Guatemala or parts of Guatemala as well. The Yucatan Peninsula is an area that separates the Caribbean from the Gulf of Mexico. And today's Yucatan Peninsula is significant for ancient Mayan culture, as there's many different Mayan archaeological sites in the region. We are not going to do any major Mayan archaeological sites, although we do go to one. Historically, the Yucatan's economy has been dependent on ranching and logging, but for the last 50 years, it's tourism all the way. Beautiful white sand beaches and beautiful water that's been described as cool mint Listerine blue. That isn't, of course, a part of a birding trip. Birders are birders, and that's what we're going to be doing. This is the overview. We landed in Cancun. Our first stop was over here at Rio Lagartos, and then we came back this way and went down south. And then we came back up to Playa del Carmen, over to Cozumel, and then back to Cancun. I just wanted you to see what the deal is with birding. Birding is actually big business. This is one company that it has tours, has been shut down for a year. And here are the tours that they're offering. And here's some more of the rest of their tours. Tourism is big business. There's a huge number of Americans, like 20 million a year, who go on bird-oriented tours. So keep your eye open for that and think about perhaps looking into it. Just to give you an idea of what it takes to go on a birding trip, you got to have a pair of binoculars. The standard binoculars are 8 power or 10 power, and the 42 is the destination, the objective lens diameter. These weigh about 2¼ pounds. And this is the camera that I was shooting with on this trip. It's a Canon Rebel, and this is a 400 millimeter lens with a crop sensor, so it shoots like 600 millimeters. This camera and lens weigh 7 pounds. You add that to the binoculars, and you're carrying a significant amount of weight around. I have upgraded to a smaller camera with a bigger zoom in recent years. You also, of course, need to have a field guide, although many of us these days have all of the field guide on our cell phones. Cell phones have really revolutionized birding. This is also the checklist. Every night you go out, every day you go out birding. You usually start at dawn or sometimes pre-dawn, and then you bird till dark. And then at dinner, you go over the checklist of what you've seen that day. Otherwise, you would never be able to keep track of what you've seen. So we set out. We had a goodly group. And this is some of the habitat that we went through. This little palm is an endemic, and that gives me an opportunity to explain to those of you who haven't heard talks before. Endemic is a word that is used to describe something that is unique to this given location. So if you can have endemic plants, you can have endemic fish. Obviously, you can have endemic birds. And for birders, endemic birds are it, because if you don't see an endemic bird when you're in that territory, you're never going to see it. So this was our group. They were a load of good birders and a lot of fun. Right here is Gina Nickel, the owner of Sunrise Birding, which is the company we were touring with. And we located one of our main target birds right up front. This is the Yucatan wren. It is an endemic, which is why it was so important that we see it. And they showed us very nicely, and they also sounded good for us. Here's what they sound like. That's kind of a typical fussy wren call, but quite different from what we would hear in the US. And then we were lucky enough to locate a ferruginous pygmy owl. This is a bird that is crepuscular. It's not usually out and about during the day, but we managed to catch him and we caught him with his eyes open. Here's what they sound like. And soaring over us was a great black hawk, giving us another look. And there actually were two of them. This is the place we came to after leaving Cancun. Cancun and Cozumel, of course, are just wild with tourism, and this couldn't be farther removed from that, as you can see from our charming little Punta Ponto hotel. These are our two vans, and this was a sweet, charming, unsophisticated village, about as far as you could get in any way, shape, and form from Cancun. This is the upstairs of the little hotel, and we're overlooking the waterfront. This is the area where we left when we went on our boat tours, and this is our guide Roberto down in the lower left. These are our drivers. They became very much a part of our group, and this is Roberto. He was Mayan. And back here we have Steve, the British birding guide, fabulous guy, wonderful birder, and a load of fun, as you can tell. So here we are at Rio Lagartos, and the fishermen are repairing their nets. And this is what they always needed to do, that's for sure. Obviously, these nets took a lot of beating. And right there on the dock in front of our hotel was a yellow-crowned night heron across the street. And this just astounded me, because we once had a yellow-crowned night heron in this area, and birders were coming from hundreds of miles around to see it. And here this guy was just hanging out on the dock. And that was a look at him close up. Love that orange eye. That's the yellow-crowned night heron call. So this is an overview of where we were going to be going. This is the area where we were staying at Rio. It's either Rio or Rio Lagartos. I've seen it both ways, and I couldn't figure out which was preferred. So I'm just going to switch back and forth, and you'll have to deal with it. We had salt marshes, mangrove swamps, and barrier reefs, and it's been designated a biosphere reserve, which makes it very special, has to be preserved and saved for humanity. And they are nominated by the government, and they remain under the protection of the government where they're located, and they are internationally recognized. So this is where we will be visiting. And so we headed out by boat to explore the birds of the estuary biosphere San Felipe. And there were gulls and pelicans flying all over the waterfront, mostly because the fishermen were cleaning their fish and throwing out the parts they didn't want. The local gulls certainly did, and so did the pellies. And we found a laughing gull, which was seeing us off. That's a laughing gull. And here were some brown pelicans foraging around the dock. They were just determined to get any free lunch they could possibly get. That's a bunch of pellies complaining. This is a brown pelican just taking off. Note that he's been tagged, which means somebody trapped him and documented where he was. And then if he's spotted later, they know where he's gone and they get an idea of what sort of a migration he has, if indeed he has any. This is a juvenile brown pelly. And here is an adult in non-breeding plumage. And here is the adult brown pelican in breeding plumage. So here's the non-breeding, and here's the breeding. You can see the big orange eye, the orange orbital ring around the eye, and the brown down the back of the neck. And so the group set off. We had 2 boats. And right up front, we ran across this wonderful reddish egret. And the way this bird fishes is to run, as you can see, and flap his wings and chase the fish. He's obviously in very shallow water. And then he stops and slurps them up. And he was just roaring around. And obviously it's very successful. They wouldn't be still around. I never saw him catch anything, actually. Come on. That's a reddish egret. And in the same area, we found a gorgeous white ibis with that beautiful orange decurved beak, and then a wood stork. The call I'm going to play for you is the ibis, because we've got the wood stork coming up in another picture. But it's unusual to see two species like this. This is the white ibis. And here we found another wood stork. And here's a wood stork doing a little bit of reddish egret action too. I love the way they look like they're wearing headsets up here. Here's the wood stork. It's a little quiet. I hope you can hear it. We also ran across a double-crested cormorant. They always have those beautiful turquoise eyes. Here's their sound. Oops, not. And a trio of double-crested cormorants. And then a royal tern set up for us. And right over on the mangroves near where we were with our boats, we found this common black hawk. And he was very still. And it wasn't until I looked down at his feet that I realized that he'd caught himself some lunch. And here's his call. And he was definitely not going to eat that fish till he was pretty sure there wasn't anybody that was going to come and take it away from him. But as you can see, he's a pretty good sized bird. I doubt anybody could take it away anyway. And we found a great blue heron. Now, this great blue heron is exactly the same species that you'll see around here in the Chicago area. In fact, where I live in Northfield, there's a great blue heron rookery just around the corner with probably about 30 nests. So, so this is a great blue heron, and we were here in late January, early February. This is one that decided he was going to stay. He's going to stay here, and here's what they sound like. Whoops. No, I guess I don't have a sound for him. Sorry about that. And then we found a Morlet's crocodile. This is a small crocodile, and I think it's a Mexican species. He was very close, or at least when you have a nice long lens, he was. This is also known as a Mexican crocodile. Now this is a female anhinga. These fish are swimmers, as you can tell by the webbed feet, and they use that dagger-like bill to stab the fish that they catch and then eat. I don't have a call for this female, but this is the male. This is the female. This is the male. This is called sexual dimorphism, and in the bird world, typically the males are a little fancier. As you can see, this adult anhinga is gorgeous with his feathering and that beautiful turquoise orbital ring around his eye. And here's what he sounds like. And this was just a fun picture because we had brown pelicans, a couple of cormorants, and a white ibis all in one shot. And here's another juvenile brown pelly. He was so awkward looking. You could just tell he was a baby if you didn't know from looking at your field guide. And we ran across a lovely brown crested flycatcher. Here's what this guy sounds like. And flying overhead was a stunning roadside hawk. He gave us great views, beautiful plumage. These are the primary feathers. These are important for flight. Here's his call. And lo and behold, a tropical mockingbird. Now, of course, playing a song for a mockingbird is a joke because they can make any bird sound they want. And we were boating near this area where a bare-throated tiger heron was. Now, a bare-throated tiger heron can usually hunch down and look like a little old man, but this guy had his neck fully extended. You can see what they call a bare throat, which is just actually some light colored feathering. And now he's crouching down. That's his sound. And then liftoff. Overhead, a magnificent frigate bird. And lo and behold, the lovely and charming vermilion flycatcher. What a wonderful looking bird. So from the sublime, i.e. the vermilion flycatcher, to the groove-billed ani, these are a blackbird, very common in the tropical areas. So we returned from the biosphere, and unfortunately, when we visited Las Coloradas, it was a cloudy day. This is also known as the Yucatan's pink lagoons. And unfortunately, it doesn't look terribly pink because of the clouds. This was one of my friends, Ellie, in the pink. The scientists believe that there's a bacteria in the water, Dunaliella salina, that makes this pink water. But it was, here's a view that I got off the internet of it. If you happen to get there on a sunny day, pretty much of a knockout. This was a salt flat area. For the life of me, I cannot, because that's why it's so broad and flat. I cannot tell you why the salt that they pulled out of it isn't pink, because there's the salt that they're harvesting back there from right where we were with the pink. I have no idea how it happens that the salt is not pink. Then we were walking down a little road called the Vigia Chico Road, and this little girl who lived there brought out her pet parrot to show us, which was really sweet. And quelle surprise, right overhead was an olive-throated parakeet. Not all birds have the same specifics as their name, but this one was pretty well named, olive-throated parakeet. There are actually two of them that made an appearance for us. And here's the beautiful, stunning blue sky we would have liked when we were at Las Coloradas, but it wasn't to be. And we ran across an Altamira oriole who was being a little shy, unfortunately, hiding behind the leaves. He has that pure whistle of a oriole. Our Baltimore Orioles have a pure whistle too. It's different, but similar. Altamira oriole. And then lo and behold, a black-headed trogon. Now, I have to tell you that birders and photographers love trogons because they're big birds and they sit still. And this guy had a lovely light blue eye ring and these pretty tail feathers and that yellow belly. Here's what he sounded like. He'd found a piece of fruit, and an awful lot of the birds down in the tropical areas absolutely love fruit. And this guy was really, really enjoying it. And he just threw it down. I couldn't believe he got that whole thing with, well, birds, of course, can't chew, so they have to be able to throw things down. And lo and behold, we found this knockout keel-billed toucan. I want to assure you that beak is something like our fingernails in that it's very lightweight, and so he doesn't tip over because of the size and the heaviness of his beak. He can actually pick up a small piece of fruit with the point of that beak, throw it up in the air, and slide it down his throat with the greatest of ease. They're just beautiful birds, and they love to show off for you, it seems. Here was one flying by. It's not the greatest shot in the world, folks, but I just loved seeing him in the air. And here's another shot where he showed his beautiful feathers. And lo and behold, we found a squirrel cuckoo. He has a lovely reddish brown and then this nice long tail. And they do, and there's some things back there that he's probably eating, some berries or fruits. But the fact of it is that they can scramble through the trees almost like squirrels, which is why that's what they're named. I want to try to get it. There's the call for the squirrel cuckoo. And then we found the beautiful turquoise brown motmot. It's this is a bird that looks like he has eye makeup, beautiful coloration, beautiful feathers, and then this long tail with a what they call a racket at the end. Here's his call. And then we ran across a white-fronted Amazon. This is what the taxonomists call a white front. But you love the light blue behind that, and then the red and the green and the green and the red. Beautiful parrots, lovely feathering. If parrots are around, they're usually pretty noisy. And then we found a charming and very agreeable buff-bellied hummingbird. And here we found another even closer up Ferruginous pygmy owl. And this was what I started to talk about before. They are crepuscular, meaning that they come out at twilight usually. And these guys wouldn't, when we spotted them, would open their eyes, and so we would get some decent shots, but they might hunt on an overcast day. Birds are usually either diurnal or nocturnal. Diurnal meaning that they are daytime birds, or nocturnal meaning they're out at night. So we found a local pale-billed woodpecker, beautiful, beautiful big head, and of course that white billed. Another shot of him. He had a hole near in a taller tree nearby, so that was why he was hanging out around us. And then we found a masked Titira. This is the female. And at a local lodge, we found these beautiful Yucatan jays. They were perfectly gorgeous, and they were good-sized birds, as you can tell, with long tails. They don't sound like our blue jay, but there's a distinct similarity to the jay call. 3 of them showed up, but they would not all look at me at the same time, of course. And we had a great-tailed grackle, which was flashing some nice purple iridescence. And of course, this is similar to our grackle in that it's got the light eye, but a great tail means it definitely has a bigger tail than our common grackle. And the red-throated ant tanager was a nice surprise at this lodge. and we found a white-collared seed eater. You will notice that this bird has got a nice large beak, because that's what he does. He takes that beak and crunches seeds. So here's his sound. And lo and behold, a beautiful lessons our blue-crowned motmot. This is another bird that looks just like it wears eye makeup, with the light blue on the crown and the red eye, and this is a little stick pin, they call it, on its chest, and then the subtle coloring of the feathering, and then once again a long tail with a racket on the end. It's just a stunning, stunning bird. And once again, motmots are a photographer's dream, because they tend to sit for you. And we found a barred ant shrike. This fellow, this is the male, and the female is identically feathered, but she's brown and ivory, I think. And then a lovely gray hawk posed for us. It's a typical hawk whistle. Carries a long way, which is why they make that sound, to let the world know that he's there. And a squirrel cuckoo. Didn't we just do the squirrel cuckoo? Then we found a golden olive woodpecker. He's obviously looking for some insects. You see a little bit of a web here, so maybe he's found himself a spider. So most days we were out in the field, and of course there's not any restaurants around. And so our two drivers, Beto and I've forgotten this guy's name, would, and then this of course was Roberto, our Mayan guide. They would make delicious salads and wonderful guacamole. Here's the girls were so carried away with the guacamole that they were taking notes on how to make anyway, we loved the lunches. They were absolutely terrific. And the guys did it with great aplomb and great efficiency as well. For dessert, we had golden mangoes. Wow, if you ever see these things at the grocery store, get them. They are out of this world. They're smaller than a regular mango, maybe about 2 or 3 inches. And I mean, you had to just lean over when you were eating them, because they were so delicious and so drippy. I have seen them at Mariano's, so look for them. And if you spot them, go for it. So we had wanted to see some Mayan ruins, and typical on a bird trip, usually you don't do anything except birding, but they were kind enough to take us to Mugil, and this was indeed also a biosphere reserve, as was the where we went out in the boat. So once again, an area that's highly recognized by the government and to be preserved for humankind. And here were the ruins. This was particularly interesting, I thought, because these trees are growing up on top of the ruins. They obviously have no respect for preserving the Mayan ruins. But it was a fascinating place to go, and we were glad that we'd gotten to see there are Mayan ruins all over the Yucatan Peninsula. And of course, because we're birders, we had to try a little birding. Happy to say we found some ocellated turkeys on the grounds. These are the females. Beautiful, beautiful coloration on the head. The males will, I didn't get to see a male displaying, but the male will display. And then, lo and behold, we heard this awful sounding beast. Oh, come on, playful. Now, when you're out in the jungle and you hear something like this, you think a train's coming through. And you cannot think for the life of yourself what it is. And here's what it is. Of all things, a Yucatan black howler monkey. They are the loudest animal in the New World. They say that sound that you heard can travel up to 3 miles. They're big. They supposedly can weigh up to 22 pounds, and they have a prehensile tail, which means they can use their tail like a hand when they're going through the treetops. They tend to go in groups, and they can live up to 20 years. I tried to correct this. This thing about the largest animal in the New World is obviously wrong. I'm sorry, folks. I tried to take it out before, but I couldn't get the computer to accept my change. So just forget that thing that's there, and we'll move on. I'm now we have done all the way down, and now we are back at Playa del Carmen, and which is where all the action is. Playa del Carmen and Cancun. You know that these are the beautiful sand beaches that people love to vacation at, and we take the ferry over to the island of Cozumel, because it's known for its endemic birds, which of course is what birders are after always. So first of all, lo and behold, we found the endemic Yucatan woodpecker. It's also called red-vented woodpecker. This is the vent, the underside of the back of the bird. So you can see there is a little bit of a red vent. This looks a lot and actually sounds a lot like our red-bellied woodpecker, but it isn't. It is an endemic, meaning it's the only place in the world you can find it. And here's what it sounds like. And this is the female Yucatan woodpecker. Unfortunately, she's facing us. There is a smaller red thing. Here's the male, has all the way back down the side of the head, and then the female has just a little bit of a red spot on the back of her head. And then we found this glorious white crowned pigeon. He's a pretty good sized bird. I mean, here's his tail down here, but he's very fancy with a gold eye and a two-toned beak. Sounds a lot like a pigeon to me. And lo and behold, the teensy green-breasted mango. Green-breasted mango. This is the Cozumel Country Club. I've got that huge lens on my camera, so I could only get in the picture part of the sign. I tried to go online to pick up a sign off the internet, but unfortunately, the Cozumel Country Club has gone out of business. So anyway, at the Cozumel Country Club, we found this black spiny-tailed iguana who was quite a handsome fellow. They're herbivores, so you don't worry about them, even though they are rather ferocious looking. They are quite harmless. And here we are on the golf course, and most of us who golf, which it wouldn't be me, you don't expect to find crocodiles when you're trying to find your ball. Anyway, it would certainly convince me not to go into the water to get my ball. And we happened to cross a lovely common gallinule. I always like to call this the candy corn beak. And we ran across a great egret who was at the top of the mangroves, flapping his wings. These are beautiful birds. There seems to be a direct correlation between how pretty a bird is and how ghastly sounding its call is. And these were one of our major focus birds. The three, not one, not two, but three ruddy crakes. I have gone after this bird in the past and not ever seen one. I've heard it, but not seen it. These guys came out and not only showed, but showed for us happily. And we all got good shots. Here's the sound of them. And lo and behold, we found the Yucatan vireo eating again some local fruit. Come on. And the darling northern jacana was going along the water's edge, and I couldn't help but see that there was a crocodile back there, so they weren't kidding us with that sign. And here were some black-necked stilts. I just love these birds. They are so elegant looking, and they are also on the edge of the water with a crocodile very nearby. I am really quite surprised that they weren't a little more leery, because they are pretty close. Here's their sound. So at one of the lodges that we stayed at, I saw this sign, which I had to take a picture of. I thought it was a joke, but in fact, I did some research, and turns out that they do have jaguars north of Cancun. Anyway, I don't think anybody was feeding them if they could avoid it. So this is to indicate what we do at night when we're on a birding trip. It's particularly glamorous in the Yucatan, because we were drinking blue margaritas. They had regular margaritas and they had blue margaritas. The blue margaritas were perfectly delicious. And we would sip our margaritas and go over a checklist. And this is the checklist. There's about 23 pages of birds. And you can see that this was the date, the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And you could see that we saw Eurasian collared doves almost every day on the trip. A common ground dove we got on the 28th, but that was only, so this is what we do every night at dinner. So you have birds all day long and you have birds with dinner. And then now, mind you, we're in Playa del Carmen now. We're back in the tourist area. So of course, you're going to hear that music again. You know that. Well, it wouldn't be Mexico if you didn't have mariachis. The meals were excellent throughout, whether we were in Playa del Carmen or out in the lodges, out in the countryside. This was just one of them. Uh, they were elegantly displayed and very tasty. The steaks were great. I'm happy to say Sunrise bought guacamole for dinner every night. We had guacamole every day for lunch. We were practically walking avocados by the end of this trip. But the food was good, and oh my, that Mexican beer is delicious too. And here with this is, as I said, it's Playa del Carmen. Margaritas delivered on the waiter's head, and we never spilled one when we were there. And this was the last night, and it was Beto's birthday, so they brought us a little bit of, bought him a piece of a birthday cake with a candle and some more mariachis. So, folks, farewell to the Yucatan. It was a great trip, an awful fun time, and a very good group. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Adios, amigos. Just as a summary, we had 236 species of birds and 6 other sightings: the black howler, the white-nosed coati, gray fox, Yucatan squirrel, Jamaican fruit bat, and vampire bat. And I never feel the same again about guacamole. So that's it, folks. Thank you very much. And should I stop sharing, Terry, or what?
No, go ahead and leave that picture up and then we'll take questions, Mary Lou.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to look in the chat and see if anybody has posted questions. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question, feel free to do so. Somebody wants to know, are any of these birds that you showed us endangered?
Well, practically all birds are endangered these days. I don't know how to answer that. I really can't answer that question.
All right, and someone wants to know what new camera and lens.
Oh, oh gosh, I practically haven't used it for the last year. It's a Canon Sure Shot with a wonderful zoom. I'd have to go get it. I really don't. Golly, but it's about this big, and just a little zoom that goes in and out. It's wonderful.
Is that the photo that you showed us at the beginning of the presentation?
No, that's the Rebel with the big lens that I was using on this trip. You know, subsequently, that's a lot to schlep around all day. If you want to wait for 2 seconds, I'll go get the new camera that I got that I'm liking a lot. But I can't. It's a Canon Sure Shot. I'm sorry, I haven't even used it because we have been, because of COVID, we haven't been doing anything.
Wow.
So not
Somebody
to be much help.
Also wants to know what accounts for so many different species that live in the Yucatan.
Well, it's probably the climate. You know, birds go where there's food and proper temperature. So I think you know the tropics, both Central America, South America, tend to be wonderful for birds, and I just think that it's the combination of available food and good climate is what causes them to be there.
What time of year were you there, Mary Lou?
It was late January, early February.
Okay.
But this is, you know, that's very hot in the summertime. Mexico's a great place to go in the wintertime if you're wanting to get away from Chicago's winters. And the Yucatan is certainly, you know, all of Mexico, as far as I'm concerned, is a good trip in the wintertime.
Somebody wants to know what these birds are on the last slide.
Oh, these are wood storks that we had earlier. This I just love these two because they look to be laughing. So yeah, we had the wood storks out in the water, and then the one flapping his wings. You don't see it when there's a little bit of the black, if you recall the wood stork when he was running and flapping his wings like the reddish egret.
All right, if you have any more questions, please put them in chat or unmute yourself. If you have questions for me about the library, feel free to ask also. Mary Lou, were you going to go and get that camera, or shall we?
Oh, sure. I'll go get it.
All
Be
right.
right back.
While Mary Lou is doing that, I just want to remind you that this Thursday you can sign up for Myths and History of the Great Highland Bagpipers with Kevin Chapman, who's been bagpiping for 30 years. And I also will be posting the Holocaust Museum Your City at Home presentation on our calendar to run from tomorrow through Friday, and that will be a recording link that you can sign up for. Also let you know, if you didn't hear in the beginning, that our grand opening celebration event at the library will be held on Saturday, June 5th from noon to 4 o'clock on that day. We will have our celebration outside in the parking lot, and there will also be library tours, small library tours that day also. The library will be open its regular hours that day from 10 to 5. But our celebration in the front parking lot will run from noon to 4 p.m.
I'm coming.
All right. We do have a few more questions for you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Somebody.
You want to do the questions or want to do the camera?
Oh, show the camera first.
Okay, so this is a Canon. Well, anyway, PowerShot SX70. This will give me the same zoom effect, but not quite the same quality pictures as that other camera with the 400 lens. But it is, and it zooms out. Well, of course, because the battery's dead, because I haven't used it. But anyway, this will zoom out, and it's a 65 power optical zoom, 20.3 megapixels. It's a wonderful little camera. There the lenses going out. Anyway, it's remarkably easier and very effective. If you were shooting for National Geographic, you probably wouldn't be using this camera, but I'm not shooting for National Geographic. So this is far easier for me to schlep around the field. So what else is